Welcome back to another episode of Meet the Scholars. My name is Libby Krieger, and today I am joined by Dr. Caleb Fuller. Dr. Fuller is an assistant professor of economics here at Grove City College, where he graduated with his degree in economics. He then went on to get his PhD from George Mason University. His writing has also been featured in professional journals such as the International Review of Law and Economics, the Review of Austrian Economics, as well as popular outlets such as the American Institute for Economic Research. Thank you so much for joining me today, Dr. Fuller.
It's a pleasure to be here.
So Dr. Fuller, I'd love to hear a little bit more about your background and why exactly you got involved in the field of economics.
Yeah, well, thank you. I got involved in the field of economics due to the excellent undergraduate professors that I had here at Grove City College. They inspired me when I came to the school as a freshman, and I was inspired by the ability of economics to make sense out of what I saw as a sort of seemingly senseless world. And I think nowadays what really drives my passion for economics is the fact that understanding economics is what allows societies to experience widespread flourishing, mass human prosperity. And when societies don't get the economics right, we see the exact opposite of that. We see what the philosopher Thomas Hobbes referred to as people living lives that are nasty, brutish, and short. They experience widespread deprivation and destitution rather than mass human flourishing. And so I want to help my students understand how to experience one of those outcomes as opposed to the other.
That's so great that you're able to give back what got you started in your passion for economics. So here at Grove City College, we teach Austrian economics. Could you briefly describe how this school and tradition of economics differs from others?
Sure, absolutely. So the Austrian tradition in economics has a very long and distinguished past that dates back to the 1870s with an Austrian scholar named Karl Menger, who wrote an important book called Principles of Economics in 1871. But the intellectual roots of the Austrian school actually date back even further to the Spanish scholastics, who were scholars in the Middle Ages, devotees of Thomas Aquinas, and that influence can be seen in Austrian economics today. And Austrian economics also owes a significant debt to thinkers in the Scottish Enlightenment, such as Adam Smith and Adam Ferguson. Some of the things that would distinguish Austrian economics from conventional approaches would be the emphasis that Austrians place on the fact that we are what we study. And so while many conventional approaches to economics attempt to ape the methods of the natural sciences, such as physics, the Austrians have emphasized that there needs to be a unique and distinct science of man that accounts for certain features of human action that are sort of squeezed out of conventional approaches. And so the Austrian approach, as I see it, is much more realistic and humane. It would be a mistake to associate Austrian economics with a set of policy conclusions. Instead, Austrian economics is a set of analytical propositions about how we understand the world.
Well, thank you so much. That's a fascinating history. Thank you for explaining that. Now, what I want to do is get your reaction to the fact that so many young people seem to be gravitating towards socialism nowadays.
Yeah, so that's certainly a disappointing development. When we poll young Americans about their views of socialism, one of the things that sticks out to me as an economist is that they seem to have a somewhat squishy understanding, you could say, of socialism. They often like to define it as simply being nice to your neighbor, which of course we don't need government in order to do. And then there are of course others who simply identify socialism with a large redistributive welfare state, such as the ones that we have in Scandinavia. But that also isn't a historic definition of socialism from an economic perspective. Economists have always said that socialism is when government owns society's productive factors and uses them to determine what shall be produced, how it shall be produced, who shall get what, in other words, distribution questions and the like. And there are very sophisticated economic arguments for why that sort of system is outperformed rather by a capitalist one. We don't necessarily have time to go into that here, but I think that one thing that all young Americans should know is that wherever socialism is tried, it has resulted in the widespread deprivation and destitution that I mentioned at the beginning. People end up living lives that are nasty, brutish, and short. There are no exceptions to this. There are no unicorns out there. And I think that's something that every young American should take to heart and wrestle with.
Absolutely. That's a very frightening reality, but I'm sure we are confident that you're teaching the correct definition of socialism in the classroom. The last question I have here today for you is, do you have any upcoming projects or writings that we should be on the lookout for?
Yeah, so I have a book project that is sort of beginning to take form. I am examining a series of pithy statements or proverbs or aphorisms, you could say, and using them as a jumping off point to introduce the basic principles of economics. So for instance, a saying like, anything worth doing is worth doing well, or if you want a job done well, you got to do it yourself. I think these statements are popular yet wrong, and I hope this book can be an entertaining introduction to economics for those who want to learn more about what I consider to be a very fascinating discipline.
Great. Well, we here at the Institute will be excited to see that coming up. Thank you so much for joining me here today.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for tuning in to meet Dr. Fuller. Before you go, make sure you like this video, subscribe to our channel, and check out our website at faithandfreedom.com. We'll see you here next week for another episode of Meet the Scholars.